From Croaky here at the Oceania Tobacco Control Conference in Hobart, and I'm speaking with one of the delegates who will kindly introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Jane Galea-Singer and I'm the Smoke-Free Coordinator for Mental Health and Addictions in Auckland District Health Board.
Hi Jane, thanks very much for doing this. Can you talk to me about what's brought you to the conference? What are the big issues for you?
Yeah, sure. The big issue for me is getting smoke-free in mental health and addictions on the agenda, really, because there's such a high prevalence in our group of people still smoking, and I'm not sure that the stop smoking services that we provide are always the best way to meet the needs of our service users, so I really wanted to get that on the agenda.
Why is that? Where do you miss the boat?
Where do we miss the boat? Well, I think quite often we're expecting people to come to us, and when your mental health is quite low, just getting up and moving out the door is a big step. So I think there's perhaps too many obstacles for people between getting themselves to get the help to where they're standing. And quite often, cigarettes have been an integral part for people. It's been their prop, it's been their coping mechanism, they see it as a friend. They're perhaps confused by what cigarettes do for them and think that they're actually doing them good rather than doing them harm. So there's a big fear of taking those away. So, I think we need to start the journey much earlier with people and be saying we need to dispel some of those myths first and give them that understanding that cigarettes are not good for people. They're not actually improving their mental health. They're actually detrimental to their mental health. And as a side issue, they're going to get you addicted, and it's a very bad addiction to have.
And those issues, those feelings about that they are a comfort, that they, is the last thing that they should need to give up, that's not only held by people with mental health issues themselves, it's held a lot by the people that work with them, yeah?
It certainly is. There's been a tolerance in mental health and addictions of smoking. In fact, just a few weeks ago, someone at Customs told me that all the cigarettes they used to confiscate, they used to give to the mental health institutions and the homeless.
Really?
Really. So it's quite shocking.
Yes.
So there is a tolerance, but I have to say, we've got to remember there's been a tolerance in a lot of institutions. If we consider the police, we consider the army, smoking was an integral part of life in those kind of areas. So in our sort of area, in our population, we've begun to think that, well, smoking is good. And of course, years ago people were fooled by those tobacco companies. So, doctors thought they were advising something good to people, whereas now we know different.
So what have been some of the presentations that you've heard at the conference that you're going to take away as something that you can work on?
Sure. Mine was good.
Oh yes, what did you present on?
I presented on the Let's Kick Butt Challenge, which is a mass quit incentivised challenge for people in mental health and addiction services, but not just the people. We extend it to the staff and the whānau, which means family in New Zealand, and really anyone that's perhaps linked to that person, because what we see is if the more people we can get around the person who smokes, quitting with them, the better chance they stand as well. So yes, it's a very good challenge that we run every year, and it's incentivised, so we try and make that fun, because quitting smoking is not fun, particularly for people with mental health and addictions. The initial start is very hard.
And what are you finding? What's been the impact of it?
It's grown bigger and bigger every year, and we're coming into having funding for another year, which I'm very excited about. The impact, I think, is shown for our prize giving day, which we tend to try and do on World Smoke Free Day, of course, May the 31st, where everyone comes along and we give out the last prizes and certificates to everyone who's taken part. And to give you an example of that, we had over 140 attend the event one year, and over 80 of those were people who actually use their services. So it has a very good response, and even now, we are in October actually, not quite in November, and I've already got people asking when the next challenge is, and we get that message from service users and particularly from frontline staff as well.
Where can people find out about it?
People can find out, we advertise for it's just for Auckland at the moment. I think it would be a great challenge for any state to take on, but we just advertise for our local networks and our local newsletters.
Right. And what about other takeaways from the conference?
Other takeaways, it's been great to see so much in mental health and addictions on the agenda. We had a whole afternoon with topics around mental health and addictions, and how people are going into services. Talks about increasing rates of nicotine replacement therapy. Talks of perhaps getting nicotine replacement therapy to people before they're getting into hospital. I found all those things very useful. There's still some talk here of getting policies and procedures, and it was nice for me to be able to say, hey, we've already got this model here that might be able to help you, but also get back some information from people on things that are working, and dispelling some more of those myths. One of the myths around inpatient wards, for instance, is that a lot of the aggression is because people want to smoke and they can't smoke, and actually we're seeing that that's not necessarily the case, and we're seeing that if it is the case, the reason for that is the gap in people receiving their nicotine replacement therapy. That in the mornings they start off being advised and given nicotine replacement therapy, but when they really need it a few hours later on, it's not been available to them. So that was a big insight for me.
Any best case examples from around the world that you'd like to promote?
Certainly Ash in Scotland do some really good work in mental health, and I really like the Stolen Years report, mostly because they show the benefit to your mental health if you actually quit smoking. So there's very little research out there for mental health and addiction, so it's really good to see some research coming out. So I would direct people usually to the UK and to Ash and things like the Stolen Years. There's quite a few reports out there that can help people.
And did you get a sense then that you came here out of the worry that mental health isn't on the agenda in tobacco control? Do you get the sense it is more, that there is traction, that there is momentum?
I certainly do. I certainly do. It was refreshing from two sides, and I think we kind of need to sandwich countries together in a way that Australia seems to have it nationally on the agenda, and New Zealand's got it underneath, and we're getting the tools and things, but we haven't got the sort of recognition. We sometimes call it a special population and sometimes not, but we've got a whole lot going on in mental health and addictions to support people to quit. So if we could bring those two bits together, I think we'll make some leaps and bounds.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for talking to me very early in the morning.